I think that somewhere along the way in a game of telephone, something got exaggerated. I don't think, and I love Brad Marchand, would never want to burn that bridge, means a lot to me. I don't think Rich made something up. Yes, Pete, let us begin with the Boston Bruins and whether or not radio host Rich Keefe galvanized the Boston Bruins. On Friday, after the Bruins had lost their 6th straight game, radio host Rich Keefe of WEEI, Jones and Keefe, 10-2, who has been very informed on the Boston Bruins over the last few years. I would say unusually informed because I know Rich and he is not
weirdly plugged in.
He would not identify himself as a hockey guy. Right. I don't think. He's a basketball guy. He's a good host, a very nice person, and a funny guy. I would consider him a friend. Has had these reports on the Bruins over the years that, like, I wasn't covering the Bruins at the time, but he would have stuff where I'd be like, how do you... Yeah. Where's that coming from? How's he getting that ahead of everybody else? Not like, how's he getting that ahead of me? Like, how's he getting that ahead of like Pierre LeBrun? Or how's he getting that ahead of Darren Drager? And then wouldn't you know it, the thing comes true. He was right about David Pasternak's contract. He was right about the Bruins not only firing Jim Montgomery, but replacing him with Joe Sacco. And some of the things that he's right on, he'll have it like 2 to 3 days too early, where he'll say, hey, this is happening. You don't hear anything for a couple days, and you're like, swinging a miss, huh, Rich? And then it happens, and you're like, who is his source? And I'm guessing he's got one source, somebody who knows what is up and has informed him on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So that is my little CV for Rich Keefe. On Friday, he said that the Bruins had a lot of internal strife. Here is the clip of him on Jones and Keefe.
Apparently the locker room is a disaster, and David Pastrnak is at the center of that. David Pastrnak has told the team he doesn't want to be on a line with Brad Marchand, and it may stem from Brad Marchand calling out Pastrnak for some of his play throughout the year.
So that's salacious. My initial reaction before I heard anybody say anything, Pastrnak or Marchand, was the Bruins wish they sucked because they were mad at each other. The Bruins suck because they don't have good players. But I hear that, and I think that sounds exaggerated. But before we get to Brad Marchand's response, how did that strike you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really buy it. Like, I'm sure everything's not hunky dory over there right now. Like,
better not be.
You said exactly. You said that like they don't have enough good players. Their good players should be mad right now because they stink, baby. They've been such a bad team, such a tough team to watch. If they're not having a little bit of turmoil in the locker room, then that's a bad sign. I don't think that Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak were like at each other's throats. I don't think that they were refusing to play with one another. That doesn't sound like either one of them to what we know. So I wasn't fully buying this. It felt like it was more a product of how badly they'd been playing over that recent stretch, where it was like some shit must be happening here, and then maybe juiced up a little bit by Keefe.
I'll get into after we hear from Brad Marchand what I assume is going on here, but David Pastrnak, after practice on Friday, said, that's not true. I've never refused to play with Brad Marchand. And Marchand in particular, I'm sure you've seen or heard most of this by now, absolutely blew his top, which to me indicates, like, people have various reads on this. Like, the maddest I get is if someone accuses me of lying when I'm not, or there's some bullshit involving me that is wrong, because what can you do to defend it other than to say, like, no, that's not fucking true. Mm-hmm. That's what I think we get here with Brad Marchand, but you be the judge.
There's zero truth to anything that he said on the radio. This is how you lose a job very quickly. The fact that he's going to have a job after this is insane, because Pass and I are best friends. We've had an incredibly close relationship for a long time. The only reason we don't play together is so that we can spread depth throughout the lineup. There's zero truth to him being a problem in the room. He's one of the most loved guys in the room. So this guy can go pound sand, go back to the closet where no one knew where he was before, and report on nothing, because that's what he's going to be doing after this.
Yeah, I mean, there could be two explanations here, or at least two explanations. Number one is kind of what you just said, is that if somebody lies and says some shit about you and you don't really have a concrete way of saying, listen, this never happened, this is bullshit, you're making this up, you can come off extremely pissed. And you can come off like how he looks, which is just kind of exasperated. Like, what am I supposed to do other than, especially as a captain, to be like, this didn't fucking happen. And if you're just making shit up and throwing it out there, you should be out of a job, because we have enough bullshit to deal with the way that we're playing right now, that this sucks and I don't want to have to be doing this. The other read on it, which I think a lot of people are having too, is that like, it's very defensive. It comes off very defensive to the point where you're like, is he being overly defensive because something did happen and now he has to answer for it, and he's just trying to throw cold water on it by being so up in arms about it? But I also like, knowing Brad Marchand, which we both do and have for a while, like, he gets mad when some shit, like when he feels like somebody did something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen him. I mean, I've seen him very mad. This is the angriest I've seen him in the media. And I think that part of it is he's the captain of this team. And you don't want to be the president where bad shit goes down, you know? Like, you don't want bad stuff to happen in your administration. And this guy has like trained for years to be the captain of the Bruins. This means an absolute ton to him. And if part of his leadership run is that the Bruins finally got bad and there was acrimony, that is not how it was when Chara was leading. That is not how it was when Bergeron was leading. So I'm sure he, as captain of a bad team right now, has all sorts of stuff that he's dealing with right now and all sorts of affairs he's trying to get in order. The last thing he needs is for there to be any sort of public controversy. So I could see, as you said, like doing a Google search for like nearest body of water that I can dump on this. Sean, you're making faces.
I was going to say, I wasn't necessarily my reaction when I first watched it, but rewatching it just now, like, I think there's also like, assuming that he is actually, which I feel like is a safe assumption, like really close friends with Brett or David Pastrnak, like the idea that someone is accusing him, like his best friend, of being an asshole, basically, like him getting defensive more of somebody talking about somebody he cares about than necessarily the accusations of there being problems or whatever.
I could also see, like, because they are friends, which I absolutely do believe that they are really good friends, because they are really good friends, I would imagine that they have the flexibility and the relationship where they can blow up on each other and not have it be the end of the world or the end of that relationship. Like, they can blow up on each other in the room. And, you know, if you're one of the other like lower rung guys in that room and you see that, you're like, fuck, damn, like they hate each other, or like this is ugly. Then like maybe that's how it gets out that like they had a blow up and that they were like at each other's throats. But at the end of the day, like I do believe Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak when they say like we're really good friends. This is like totally blown out of proportion.
And that is my capital GUESS as to what happened, which is maybe there was something of like they snipped at each other or whatever. Like, I mean, I just think of like my own relationships. You and I are the level of friends where we can get mad at each other. Sean's seen us get mad at each other. I don't think, though, if someone was like, hey, how did DJ and Pete get along? I don't know.
This show's falling apart, everybody. What nuts. It's absolutely falling apart. They don't want to do a show together anymore.
No, like if you see someone, like two people like argue or whatever, to be like, oh, do they not get along? Maybe there was a disagreement or something, and I'm not reporting or guessing or whatever, but like, or I guess I am guessing. Maybe there was something, but I am positive that those two would be able to get past it pretty quickly. And if not for their friendship, for their levels of professionalism, David Pastrnak is a very easygoing guy. Does not strike me as the type who would hold a grudge, stay mad at somebody. Brad Marchand is a very, like, what do I need to do here? What is the easiest path to this? How can I, for example, piss off an opponent the most? What is the right way to have a competitive edge over my opponent? This is a guy who is utilizing sports psychologist way before a lot of people were, because he was like, oh, my mind can be a little bit like, he is a results-oriented guy. So he definitely would not put his ego ahead of what is best for the team. So I'm not trying to shit on Keefe any more than he's been shit on for this. I think that somewhere along the way in a game of telephone, something got exaggerated. I don't think, and I love Brad Marchand, would never want to burn that bridge, means a lot to me. I don't think Rich made something up. I think if Rich
made something up, he's a moron.
And as he said today, Sean and I were listening, he said, if I were to make something up, it would have been grander, it would have been bigger, it would have been earlier than this, and it would have been about the Patriots because that is what's going to get attention. So I do not think Rich made something up. I think that whether he or whoever spoke to him, somebody exaggerated something and maybe talked about something that was smaller or has since been solved, but I would not think that Brad Marchand or David Pastrnak would be the type to carry something to be so big when they have much larger fish to fry.
Right. And this seems like the kind of thing that probably not knowing, don't know what it is, what happened or whatever. It seems like something that probably shouldn't have left the walls of the organization. This is not a Patterson and Miller situation where one of the guys gets sent home and away from the team. Like, this is not a PD Miller situation to that degree.
We all silly like the mayor.